Hi everybody, welcome to our company's Millennial Think Tank, and tonight we are covering employer-employee loyalty and what it looks like in today's workplace. We do have two more guests that will be coming, popping in later, but we're going to start because there's a lot to talk about, and in our Boomer Think Tank last night, people had a lot to say, so I don't expect anything differently. I'm going to frame the discussion with some statistics. Last year, $11 billion, not last year, annually, $11 billion is lost annually by business due to employee turnover. All of this, by the way, comes from the accessdevelopment.com blog, but comes from a variety of sources, Bloomberg and Bain and other reliable sources. Companies that increase their number of talented managers double the rate of engaged employees achieve on average 147% higher earnings. I'm working with the guys at Switch and Shift, and I know that Sean Murphy would not be surprised because they work a lot around positive workplaces and what optimism within the workplace does for the bottom line. Each year, the average company loses 20 to 50% of its employees. And customer retention rates are 18% higher on average when employees are highly engaged. And so think about that, and then think about this. Only 32.9% of U.S. workers are engaged. That means a whopping almost 70% of U.S. companies have disengaged or intentionally disengaged workers. So we want to talk about what makes you feel loyalty to your employer and how they inspire it. But first I'm going to have you guys introduce yourselves, and when Albert and Daniel join, I'll have them do this as well. And I want you to introduce yourself, say who you are, where you fall on the millennial spectrum, what you do, and then you can do it fairly briefly. Describe the company you were most loyal to in your career. And some of you are really young at the beginning, and some of you are moving farther down the line. So Joe, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, so my name's Joe Cardillo. I'm 31, so I'm the older end of the millennial spectrum, and have worked in like technology, marketing, product development, project management for about 7 or 8 years now. In terms of who am I most loyal to, I've never even thought about that question.
Not in your personal life. We don't want to go there. Just career.
Thanks for that. No, in terms of employers, I don't know that I've found one. I have a pretty high bar for myself. And I don't know that I found one where there was a sustained relationship that I felt like, yeah, this is really growth and development in both directions over a medium to long term. So I'm hoping that'll be coming.
I'll just ask you one more question to add on to that, though. What's the longest you've ever been at a job?
I worked for 5 years for the same company in a couple of divisions.
Over the last few weeks doing some research, I read that the average American worker, and sorry Canadians because it's usually very similar statistics, but stay at their work only 4.5 years. That's across the board, not even in an older age. So
I have another comment about that, but I'm going to reserve it and come back to that. Yeah.
Okay, Samantha, can you introduce yourself, who you are, where you fall in the millennial spectrum, what you do, and what company you were most loyal to?
So my name is Samantha. I'm 24, so I guess that technically makes me a middle millennial.
You're still pretty young. No, think about this. 19-year-olds are the youngest millennials.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm somewhere in there, young to middle. I currently am doing a lot of editing and writing, which I am enjoying. And which is a nice big switch from doing some nonprofit work, and now I'm also going to be doing some community management stuff, which I'm really excited about too. The company I've been most loyal to, when I was in my undergrad, I was a part of this really fantastic co-op program that was called REAP, and REAP stands for Research Entrepreneurs Accelerating Prosperity, and it literally took STEM students and infused art into it. So it was literally making it STEAM instead of STEM. I was there for 3 years. I even considered dating the program lead's son so that I could just have them in my life after, because they were so fantastic. Literally my favorite people.
You could just become Facebook friends with them. You don't have to date the dude.
No, you don't even know. Their son was on one of my teams, and I was like, Paul, you're a great dude, but I don't see anything. but your parents, I would marry you to just have your parents in my life for the rest of my life. And like I've never had that ever since. It was a husband-wife academic team, and they were literally every step of the way was just awesome. So I've never had that since. But that's like my bar is like, would I marry into their family? No.
Wow, though, that's cool. That's supreme loyalty. I almost married a guy once for his family, though, so I get loving the family thing. Okay, TJ, where are you at? Where do you fall on the millennial spectrum? What do you do? And what company have you been most loyal to?
Okay.
You don't have to tell me the name. You can describe the company if you don't want to have the name.
Yeah, no problem. I am TJ Atkinson. I am 24, so I guess that's younger, as we're classifying it currently on the millennium spectrum. I am a branch manager for a local credit union here in Hershey, Pennsylvania. And let's see, the question, most loyal. It would be my current employer, the credit union. They gave me a scholarship when I was 19 in college, which was also a paid internship over the summer between semesters. And from there, I have worked my way up and been extremely loyal. They've also been my personal financial institution since I was 6 months old. So there you go.
Okay, so what did you go to school for?
I went to school for IT.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yes.
Okay, so you went to work for the bank, for the credit union, sorry.
That's okay.
In IT, and then they moved you over to.
Yes.
Right
Yep.
into management?
Yeah, I was a teller for 3 months before IT, and then I was full-time in IT for about 2.5 years, and then they sent me out to a branch as an assistant branch manager for 2 years, and now I'm a branch manager, and it'll be a year in October.
Okay, and how many branches are there?
There are 60.
Oh my, I didn't realize it was that big. Okay.
Yes.
Wow. Well, we actually at our company we're doing a lot of work around financial institutions, and hopefully working with MIT on a huge survey into what millennials want out of financial institutions. So we will definitely keep you around because what you're doing is very different than what most banks do.
Yes.
Okay. So I guess I already covered what made you loyal. So Joe, I'll go back to you because you haven't had that experience. If you were running your own company, what would you do to foster loyalty that you didn't get in any of these jobs you were in?
Yeah, I mean, actually, so I'll answer that, and I'll also say that I think something that's interesting is a question of like loyalty to particular people or leadership, direct report managers, et cetera, versus the company itself. Because from my perspective, loyalty to companies has reduced over time. So brand loyalty by employees is I think significantly reducing, and I think there's a lot of reasons for that. But I think part of that is that the expectations and the growth in the other direction from the company to the employee is a lot less. Qualities and characteristics. I think it's exactly that. I think if if a company is not interested in my growth and development, and that I'm getting better at what I do, and that I'm being put to the best possible use, I can't imagine it. That's a thing I really look for. And in fact, the company that I was at for 5 years, which was PR Newswire, they do news release distribution, and I did project management of marketing platforms for my last couple of years there. And I literally got to the point at the end where I was more or less on the furthest forward end of the company technologically, and I just wasn't challenged. I just did not feel like I was going to grow or to develop. And to be honest with you, when I don't see myself put to the best possible use, I don't really want to be in a place anymore. I always want to be thinking like, how can you make sure that you're getting the best out of me as an employee, and I'm learning a lot. And so that, I think seeing that kind of thing in action matters to me a lot more in terms of loyalty than, sort of high-minded vision, or, I like to see things that reflect in the everyday. I like to see that kind of that sense of growth and development happening every day and being delivered directly.
So when you left, where did you go? What type of situation did you go to, and did you do it willingly?
Well, I jumped from a pretty steady kind of middle class type job as a project manager at a 1,000-person kind of legacy company into a startup, like a series, I think it was Series A funded at that point. First time I'd ever done anything like that, and the learning and growth was amazing. I think that there's a lot more chaos, and so questions of loyalty are a lot more short term in that type of environment. I have some really good friendships and some great work relationships. I'm still really sort of closely connected to the CEO and some other people there. But the environment is definitely completely different, right? They don't have time to put into necessarily like, loyalty programs or some other stuff that you might focus on in a bigger company.
Yeah, and that's interesting because last night on the Boomer Think Tank we talked about loyalty in startups and how volatile it can be, especially when money is an issue and there's funding is drying up and people get a little crazy because it's you got to take care of your own. And I was thinking about you, Joe. I was thinking, okay, my experience in startups is, I guess, making me realize that I become loyal to people that I meet and work with, and we all may move because the parts are always moving in startups, but you keep that connection and you're loyal to that colleague or that partner or that the person you did a project with. So that's interesting. Okay, Samantha, I'm going to move to you with that question. Do you remember what it was? It was what would you do to foster loyalty on your teams?
So I've had the pleasure of being in, I guess you would call them, upper management roles. I've been an executive director, I've been coordinators, I've been managers, and I'm now going to go back to another manager gig, which is kind of cool. I think one of the things that I do is, and I answered a bunch of questions for Joe the other day for his blog, and I wrote this in there. And it's been sticking in my head after, where it's, even in the interview process, I made a move of trust. And I do that with all of my employees. I give them some cards that, usually we hold our cards really close to our chest, and I always make sure that I give a card really early on to be like, this is my move of trust here. You're seeing something that, most of the time you wouldn't get to see this. I'm giving this to you as like this goodwill gift, and I'm hoping that in exchange you will see the trust I'm trying to foster within the team that we have here. And you know what? Every time I've done that, it's been successful. I've had teams where I haven't been an executive director. Like when I was the executive director of the Public Interest Research Group, that was 3 years ago, and I'm still really good friends with all of my coworkers that were on my team at that time. And even to this day, like they'll see something and be like, "Oh, did you know that this is interested? Like you might be wanting to write here," or, "Oh, I'm doing this. Do you think you can be a reference to something?" And we give it freely because that's what we fostered, was trust from the very beginning, trust to the very end.
Okay, great. And Dominic just joined us, and I'm so happy because I have a specific question for you, Dominic, but you can't talk yet. Because I'm going to go to TJ with that question, and then I'm going to come back and go through the introduction and have you answer some things. So TJ, TJ's in a more traditional workplace in a way, even though his credit union is definitely different than standard financial institutions, but it's more traditional because of what you do. How do you foster loyalty, because you are a manager? How do you foster loyalty amongst your team?
The biggest thing I do is knowing that whatever they need, whatever it is, I'm there for them. Whether it's at work, at home, after work, before home, work related, not work related, and I drop anything I'm doing for anyone on my team whenever. So, and that's nice. My manager does that as well. I just went to the beach last weekend, and Sunday afternoon I texted her and said I'm going to have another day off, and I just got to have fun back. So that was great, because anything I need, I can go to her. She's going to take care of it. And anything on my people's team, I'm going to take care of it for them.
Well, the other thing you do that I love, which I just know from past hangouts, is that you work as a teller periodically, yes. Right?
I do, the first Friday of every month.
And are you in the drive-through or are you in the regular?
Oh no, I put myself front and center, right in the middle of the teller line, right where the ropes dump out. So I'm usually the busiest one that day.
So honestly, do you think some of your team members are like, "Oh God, TJ's out here lighting up the main area"?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Really?
Yeah, it's helped me. I've uncovered challenges that they've been having that I didn't know because I came across them that they wouldn't ever speak up about. And also, number two, I can show them what they should be doing when they're up there and how they should be interacting and setting that example, leading by example. So.
I'm just going to tell, even though it's not about me, this is the greatest leader I ever worked for. It was at a carpet mill. He got promoted to president. He went out and learned and had the guys teach him how to tuft carpet. And they were like, what? This is in California, a lot of them never, ever, ever met an executive from the company. They'd been there 30 years. And he said, no, I know I'm not going to really learn how to do it, but I want to know what you do. He was the greatest person I ever worked for. And they were blown away. And he learned Spanish so he could speak to a lot of them because, you know, it's in California. And a lot
there was a notable episode. I don't really watch reality TV, but this totally stuck in my brain. I think I've only seen it once. There was a noticeable episode of Undercover Boss, which is a CBS show, where the Waste Management Inc. CEO showed up. And the guy, he was blown away. He was a cool dude, but he was totally blown away. And at the end, he was like, well, we're going to change a whole bunch of working conditions. And it's, you know, I think just the understanding, like, it's cool, TJ, that you mentioned that, because I think that's a really big part of it. It's like just the understanding that if you're leading a team, that when someone asks you to do something, they know what they're asking you to do. Not that they're going to go do it all the time, but they understand what it means. I think that makes a big difference. I look for that, and I try to send that in the other direction when I manage teams too.
Absolutely. Very cool. Okay, so Dominic, we're going to ask you a bunch of questions since you're late. So, you know, introduce yourself, what you do, where you are, where you fall on the millennial spectrum, and then I know it's early in your career, and he's very excited about the job he's in. But what company have you been most loyal to, or what inspires loyalty? Because I know it's not the first job you've ever had, but it's your first out of college job.
Okay, so that's interesting. That's a lot of questions. Okay, so as you say, my name's Dominic. I'm a recent graduate from Chico State. You don't know where Chico is, Northern California, just above Sacramento. Studied music industry, and so I graduated in May. And just before that, through a friend of mine, a friend of actually Albert, who hopefully you'll meet tonight too. She does talent acquisition, and she does some freelance headhunting, and she basically sourced me for a company called Kohana Coffee, which is a cold brew and roasted coffee company out of Austin that is in the process of expanding all across the nation. We've got coffee in California, as well as some in New York, some in Hawaii, some pockets all over. But we're based in Austin. And so I do social media and community management for them. I've been working for them for just over a month. And even though I studied music, since I was like 17, I've worked in like social media. And in some ways, I've actually got a lot into like kind of HR kind of stuff lately. Like in the last like 2 or 3 years, I've done a lot of stuff on for people my age, like to help people get internships and like resume building and advice and that kind of stuff. Because my mom was in HR for a long time and taught me everything she knows. Albert, oh my God.
I know. Albert comes and makes noise.
Classic Albert.
Wait, what?
Oh yeah. So
am I on the end of a joke here now, or what?
Now. And
Wait,
I do
Dominic's
anything
talking, and then we'll tell you.
I've been working for them for about a month, and I run all their social media, as well as kind of find and network with influencers. I do live demos and stores for our coffee. Anything that can just help us get the word out about coffee.
So are you in Austin now? Is that where you're based? I thought you were on the East Coast for some reason.
No, I'm in Austin.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, and we have Albert. Albert, you're leaving in about 15 minutes, right? Or maybe you've already left. Okay, I'm going to go to Daniel. So this is Daniel Torrance. I don't know if everyone's met him, but Daniel was on the last call. TJ, you were there. So I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions at once, Daniel, to introduce yourself, where you fall on the millennial spectrum, what you do, and then the first question we're covering is what company have you been most loyal to and what made you feel that loyalty? So you go.
Okay, hi everyone, my name is Daniel Torrance. I think I was on the last call and met some of you. I am currently working at SAP in the Human Capital Management Division, and I basically speak to HR leaders within the public sector to help them with some of their challenges and see how we can partner with our technology that we offer, which is basically a human capital management platform where, Amy, if I forget a question, just let me know. Where I fall within the millennial spectrum is as far as age or...
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to give me your exact age, but I think you're a young millennial.
Yeah, I'm a millennial. I don't mind giving my age. I guess at this age, we're just like, yeah, we're this old. I'm 24 years old, and the company that I probably been most loyal to and I've stayed the longest because I was known as a job hopper. I started working at 14 years old and probably had a different job every 6 months to a year. I want to say I've had just like little jobs here and there over like 25, and this is the longest I've ever stayed with one company because I'm finally
How
not
long
bored.
is this?
It's been over a year, a little bit over a year, but I think it's because it's finally something that is very challenging. I'm learning, but I think the main reason why I stay with the company is because I'm passionate about what I do, and I see that the company is passionate about me and investing in me. So I think when you see it that that it's double-sided, like not only do they want to spend a lot of money to invest in you or provide resources for you, but also that you're able to be passionate and you kind of align to your job and your role. I think that's a powerful combination that will keep you there.
Aren't you at a conference with SAP right now?
That was yesterday. Now I was this week. Yeah.
Where are you? I thought you were in California.
I am. I'm still in California.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we had an interesting conversation. Daniel Hesse and I did. I wanted him to meet my partner, and he said to me, and I think this is really telling, and I understood it. I love my job so much. It's so much of who I am right now that I worry that if I lost it, that I would be depressed and gutted, and as the Brits would say. And my advice, and I brought this up briefly before, but my advice to Daniel was be really, really passionate about your career. Not that you're not passionate about your employer too, but and TJ, before you got on, Daniel, TJ said if he lost his job because he's equally passionate, it would be devastating, and that's normal for it to be devastating. But when the average American worker stays at a job for 4.5 years, it means that you probably won't be there for 20 years. Not that it won't happen, but it's unlikely, right?
Right.
So, okay. So, Albert, can you hear me? Dominic, unmute him.
Okay. Okay. Let's see. I don't even know how to do that. It doesn't let me.
Okay, there you go. It said Dominic muted Albert.
I did. I
knew you wanted to do that. So Albert, okay, so you don't have long.
Oh, okay.
And shaker. So here's the question: tell us who you are, what you do.
Well, Dominic's always muting me.
He always wishes he had like a giant life mute button, but let's, because you don't have long. Tell us what company you've been. You don't have to tell us what company, but what made you most loyal to whatever company you've been most loyal to, Albert. Now he's frozen. He's driving.
Amy, real quick. Yep. I just realized I didn't really give my 2 cents on that last question.
Go ahead.
I'm kind of like Daniel. I jumped around a lot from a very young age, job to job. My resume is, a lot of people think it's stacked, I guess, so to speak. I don't want to brag, but it's just a lot of things. And some people think it's good, some people think it's not good. I think it depends on what the jobs were and how long you were with each one. I'm usually about the same as him, six months to somewhere between 6 months and a year per job. And I've only been at this one for a month now, and I think my goal at least for now, for Kohana Coffee is at least a year, and that's for a variety of reasons.
That's your goal?
As of right now, the main reason, and let me say why, I didn't follow up with why, is that from many employees, I've, not many, but like the few that I work with, because we're a relatively small office, a startup, a lot of people seem to come and go with this job, from my understanding. So, like, staying
is it sales? But you're doing community. But are you selling too?
I'm driving revenue through. It all goes back to that. No matter what you do in the company, it all. So I think if I 2-3 months down the line, I'm not pushing social media in a way that is actually creating a community around this product, there's no reason why I would be kept on.
Wait. You think they're only going to give you 3 months to get community going?
No. I'm using that as a general vague term. They haven't given me any timelines, any goals. Particularly, I've been asked to create my own goals. I'm still working on that. Follower wise, likewise, whatever you want to call it. So no, it's not like they're going to hire me and to a certain point and then they're going to let me go if I don't hit a certain goal. But it's like I would understand that considering how fast the company is growing, if they don't see me making some kind of an impact or that I'm earning my keep, I wouldn't be surprised if I would, be let go.
Okay, in all my Gen X wisdom and after managing people and millions of dollars in business,
Yeah.
if there's a company that thinks you're going to make an impact like that in 3 to 6 months, and so I'm not saying they are, but I'm saying, with my sales reps, I always expected to start to see progress in the numbers after a year. I mean, it was a wholesale business. It was relationship building, and by 18 months is when I would really expect things to start. And that's for a kick-ass salesperson. Building community is not easy. Joe and I talked about it earlier today. I mean, that is one of the toughest jobs out there, emotionally taxing jobs, and hard to move the needle. And I think the metrics are wrong. But anyway, that's interesting. And I was wondering if you guys feel pressure from your employees to speed up production. Daniel, well, wait, I got to get Albert in because I know he doesn't have long, but then I want to come back. Daniel, I want to ask you about goals and expectations from SAP. Albert, can you, wait, I think I muted him this time. Yeah, and sometimes it doesn't let me unmute. Okay,
Yeah,
Albert.
I'm here.
Okay, sorry,
Yeah,
we
what's
all
up?
muted you. Okay, so I know you don't have long. So question is, what company have you been? What has made you most loyal to a company, and what makes you not feel loyalty? What do you need that will make you feel loyalty to whomever you're working for? And I know you've had contract jobs, so it's definitely a different scenario for you.
I think I feel loyalty when I think I personally feel like I'm doing a good job. I think I also feel loyalty when a boss shows that they're willing to go the extra couple of miles to show that they're interested in investing in whatever growth there is when it comes to me taking a job. And so, I think it's a combination of those two. I think personally because, I'm a recession graduate, I generally don't take much loyalty to any company. I know that, given that California being a at-will employment state, that I can be fired at any time for no reason really in particular, and that I am just as expendable as anyone else on where I work, and that I need to be just as I need to treat my employer with the same level of expendability, I think, because or just at least networking, and that's just the paradigm of the new economy we have, and that's also partially why Albert's List exists, because which as is the and community place that I'm building, because you never know what'll happen, and you never know what irrational reasons people might come up with to get rid of you. And I know I have a very apocalyptic view to it, but it's just I guess how I see the world sometimes from the bottom of the well that I sit in.
I think the Silicon Valley is seeping out of you right now. Like, I can hear it. And it's honestly, that's self-preservation. And I do want to talk about Albert's List. And if you have to go, that's okay, because I can talk to Dominic, because...
I've got a little bit more of a commute here, so don't worry.
Because of the loyalty.
Teach.
But before I go to that, I want to go back to Daniel. And what was the darn question I wanted to come back to you with, Daniel? I asked you before.
As far as goals and expectations.
Yes. What kind of pressure? And I know you love the company, so it's a very positive experience. But is that really clear? And do you feel pressure?
I think the pressure from what I've seen within my peers is we put, at this point, because we are new to the job, we put pressure on ourselves, because it's kind of like we're new to the role. For a lot of us, this is our first job. We want to be successful. We're excited. And we're coming into like these, very complex and hard roles. Like you said, it does take time to build that network and to build the relationships, to move, huge dollar amounts of of money through a complex sales cycle. So I think, like for me, I see myself at times putting a little bit more pressure on myself and kind of, expecting a lot more than what my managers would sometimes expect of me, because I sell to the public sector, which is typically a longer sales cycle. And my boss has even told me, like, we would love for you to close something this year, but don't really expect it. And for me, I'm like 3 months into the role, and I'm like, there's some days I have to tell myself to calm down, because I'll get like, oh my God, why haven't I closed anything yet? Or, why am I not, more farther than I would like to be within the sales process? So I think for the generation of, what I've seen is we tend to put a little bit more pressure. I think as we go down the line, like you said, when we're in 18 months or a year into our job, depending on what industry you are, what I've seen is there is pressure. If you're really not producing something, then conversations with you and your manager will start coming up as,
Sure.
What are you doing? How many calls are you making? Let me see your account plan. So I set what me and my manager do now is we have a weekly tracking call, which he ever since I started the role, he said we're going to do this. I'm really happy he put that in place because we have a call every Friday, and on that call I say these are the customers I called, this is where my challenges are, these are the activities I'm doing, and this is where you can help me.
Yeah.
So I found that very beneficial for me to kind of guide me.
You'll always have pressure in sales.
Right.
You just will. TJ, tell me about goal setting at your job and what that does to your sort of motivation/loyalty.
Sure. So as a branch manager, actually, and this is partially what makes us a little bit different, is 80% of my day is business development. I'm community involvement. I'm a member of Rotary. I'm in the local chamber. I'm going to this lunch and learn. I'm at this. I just came from an event before I came from here. So every mixer you can go to, you're there. But so I've got goals, revenue, every single one of our branches. Revenue. So but we're still all about that service, which is what makes us different from the larger actual banks. So that's what sets us apart, I think.
Okay, so Samantha and Joe, I'm going to go to you guys with this one, and Joe go first, and then Samantha. But did your experiences with your mentors, who made you loyal to them, influence how you manage? And Joe, you're going to be managing more people now as well, right? Or maybe you didn't have a mentor. I don't know if we've ever had that conversation. But you take that one first.
I mean, I have a pretty different perspective, I suspect, from a lot of people. I don't feel that I've had a really direct, obvious mentor. I think the first one I had a couple years ago was at the venture-backed startup I was at, and she's influenced my perspective a bit, because she was very collaborative. She would tell me, I want you to work on this thing. Look into it, and then let's figure out how you're going to solve it, and let's talk about it. And then we would just kind of go through it. So she wasn't formally a mentor. I think probably because she had her hands in so many things. She's basically sort of running secretly all the operations. There's usually one person like that at an early stage startup. So that perspective of sitting down and negotiating, I think, had an effect on me, and that sort of resonates with me in general. In fact, I just had a conversation with somebody about it. They were sort of what are the goals? What are the performance expectations? And I was kind of well, here's what we need to work on. And I'd like to sit down and negotiate that, figure that out, because at the end of the day, it should be a set of metrics that A, we agree on, and B, that that we're working on together, and that you have some ownership in. I know that's not very corporate. That's more of a startup.
No, but that's actually, I actually want to hear from other people, because when you're in sales, you do negotiate your goals if you're a smart salesperson. I
think people negotiate it all the time. They just don't know they're negotiating.
Yeah, well, I had two different kinds of reps. I would have really great reps who lowballed the hell out of it because they wanted to make big bonuses. Then I'd have really aggressive reps who wanted to be really successful, who would highball it, and I'd be like, no, you're going to kill yourself. You got to have it. The goal has to be attainable, or it's not going to mean anything. Right? So let me come back to whether you guys have negotiated your own goals, because that's a great point. Okay, so Samantha, answer the original question, though, is, do mentors influence your managerial style?
Yes.
Have they? Okay.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
That's it?
We were funded originally from a SHRC grant. I don't know if anyone knows anything about Canadian academics, but so SHRC essentially is the government gives you money because they're yeah, that's awesome, shit, do that. So we were operating under a SHRC grant, and literally they would pull us through the process to be this is how much money that we have to operate this thing over the next term. This is why we pay you this much, and this is how much growth we expect to happen. You are going to be here are all the streams of everything that you want to do. You choose what you want, and we'll get you through the process. And if you expect what we expect at the end of this is that when you graduate or when you leave the program, you give at least 20 hours back for another student. So they like literally like set us down, told us everything up front, and we were like, okay, we understand like how important the funding is for you. We understand how like our partnerships work. We understand like how many amazing people are helping us on this journey. The least we can do is like not F this up. And so like everything, no, like literally, and so like, you know, I'm like 20 at the time when they're telling me this, and I'm like, I will do this. And like even when I stopped being a part of the program, I was their community manager for a very long time too, because I just loved them so much, and I loved what I was doing, and I thought this was honestly going to change the world. I think it still could. But when I became a manager, I literally was like, okay, this is, some of you don't have to, like, you care about your own little budgets, but here's our giant operating budget. This is everything that I have to worry about. If I come in stressed one day, I'm going to tell you straight up, like, oh, well, we have to do with this, 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 and this, and I'm the only person, because I'm the executive director who is the face of this thing, I'm going to have to do this. So if you can handle this task while I do that, that would be great. And so, like, literally, it was everything became very reciprocal, and even when we were going through some really stressful periods, they would be like, yo, I know you have to do this, so I'm going to take up some of your paperwork because you need me to do that so you can handle this fire. Because we had built that together.
Very smart, very smart. Last night, Samantha asked me, you know, what's the one thing you need to be motivated? And I do think feeling like you're all working towards the same goal and teamwork, and that's how you do it, by communicating those goals. So that's super smart. Okay, I do want to ask you guys about negotiating your goals, but Dominic, I want to talk to you about Albert's List a little bit. So it's not, and some of you might not know about it, but it's a Facebook group, so TJ will never be in it because he hates Facebook. But it's a group that Albert started called Albert's List Jobs and Lists. I always forget the darn name of it. But it's basically a place where people go to inquire about work, and recruiters go to recruit people, and the community is amazing. And Dominic, I think you're up to 7,700 people or more. I haven't looked in a few days.
Like
and this is a year-old group about, right? Just about a year-old?
I think it's almost 2 now.
Oh, is it? So it's been blowing up, though. When I interviewed Albert, I think it was at 1,200, and it's just skyrocketing. And I have my own opinions as to why people are so loyal to that group. But building community is a lot about building loyalty and trust, which is what employers need to do. Why do you think it's so successful? What do you think the magic recipe is?
Well, I think, and I'd hate to put any of this on myself at all, and I don't, you know, the reason why the community thrives is definitely not me or anyone on the team. I don't think it is. Definitely the members when it comes down to it. It's everyone in the community. But I think the reason why there's been so much growth as of late is because kind of in the last 6 months we've kicked it into high gear, in my opinion, as a team. I mean, I was brought on, Kelsey was brought on. Before, 4 months ago, almost 5 months ago, it was just Albert and Michael and Aditi had just joined. You know, so it was a lot smaller, and they had dreams for the group, figments of their imagination, but only until really, especially when Aditi came on, because she's a powerhouse, but also with having someone with Kelsey who has all this experience in event planning and special projects, and then me being able to bring in all the college crowd.
Yeah, but what makes you work? Because you're still doing it, right?
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, I've been a little slower lately.
What makes you loyal to it, though? You have your new career. You're really excited about it.
I actually, it's funny. So the last month or so, my priority has been this job, you know, and I've kind of fallen off the wagon a bit with Albert's List. And in the last week, actually, I was sitting at work, and although I do like my job, I was sitting there and I thought about, you know, what else do I do other than this job, you know, and I didn't want to quickly fall into a full-time job where it felt like that's all I did, because I think my parents do that. They have that. At least my dad has that problem. He's a workaholic. He's done the same thing for a long time, and he probably has a lot of regrets. And so I was like, I need to not be that way. I need to find a way to balance. And so one thing I realized was like, oh, I have not given very much effort at all to Albert's List in the last month. I need to get back on that. So this week I really took time to involve myself in our conversations on the team, and then tag people and posts, and really try to get back into it, because I do care about it. And I think, although I like Kohana Coffee, and I'm behind the products, I mean, the drinks are great, and I'm behind, our values and what we care about, I think something that resonates with me more is what Albert's List does. And so if I were to see, like, for myself, like, what would I be more committed to in the long run, at least as of right now, it probably would be Albert's List still. And I think one of the reasons why that's obvious probably to anybody, and also probably the same way with everyone on my team, is that we were doing this, well, we still aren't making any money from it, but we were doing it from no money from the very beginning, and we still aren't. And, you know, it takes a lot of passion and a lot of effort to do something like this massive, you know, for no revenue, you know. And that's on the horizon. I mean,
so that's even, but see, that's why it's even more powerful. Is that it's even more powerful because you're doing it with no revenue.
I agree. I agree, and
So I think and I want to jump to that too. Actually, I have a question for Daniel, but I will tell you one of the things I think that makes Albert List so successful is the strict moderation. That the community never got away from anybody. That it didn't become a spam center. It didn't become anything. It didn't turn into something else. The culture was really worked on, and I think that's true in companies, right?
Yeah.
Daniel, I want to jump over to you. Oh, I think I muted you, so I have to unmute you. Just because it was noisy. Sorry. Maybe you muted yourself because I can't. Gonna have to go to somebody else. I thought we were past all this.
Okay, can you?
All right, wait. I muted you again by mistake. Okay, sorry. You guys, there we go. All right, sorry. I was trying to. All right, so my question, one thing I wanted to ask you is what Joe touched on, which was, have you negotiated your own sales goals, right? You sit down and have those negotiations, right? And then I don't know what Dominic was talking about, that sort of loyalty, if you have any comments to that, because he's doing that community management for free, but it's such a vibrant, incredible community, and that's what good work cultures are like too. So might as well hit both.
As far as the goals, we don't really get to negotiate them. With SAP, it's kind of just like, you know, this is your quota, this is your goal. I mean, you can set individual goals that could contribute to the overall big picture, but I haven't heard of anybody negotiating it. I mean, maybe they can, but I know my first year it was just more like, this is what you're given, and this is, you know, what you need to produce by the end of the year, so take it. And for sales, it's kind of like, yeah, we have like other goals, but our main goal is, you know, bringing in that revenue and hitting the quota.
Okay. Are you interacting with other salespeople at your job, or are you a lot?
Yeah, I have a team that I interact with, and then I have other friends who I did like the sales training program with, that we kind of interact, you know, on a weekly, daily basis, and it's kind of been the same message across the board. I think maybe for bigger companies it's harder to negotiate these goals.
Bigger companies than SAP? I don't know.
No, I'm saying, I'm saying like typically in big companies, especially in sales, like because they're doing all these metrics and looking at data, they kind of come up on a number, and that's a number you're kind of given. So I haven't really seen, you know, people being able to negotiate a lower number, or, you know, or an easier target where, you know, everybody else is getting something else.
Okay. Does anybody else want to speak to negotiating your goals and whether that means anything to you before I move on? Dominic, go.
All right. Oh, you hear me? All right, there you go. So, like I said, I've been given the free will to at least come up with some ideas that I think are reasonable, and then work with our PR person / my mentor in the company, and then if we both can agree on it, then we will, you know, present it to the CEO or my boss. And I think it really, in my opinion, depends on where the company is. You know, I think when you're a company like ours, which is quickly growing, but still kind of in the very end of the startup phase, 7 years into the company, they're still trying to spread to a bunch of states. You know, we've only broken out basically in Texas and SoCal, and then we've touched in Northern California and a little bit in New York. So we still have, and then a little bit in Hawaii. So we have a lot of room to grow still, and I think because of that, we kind of can dream big, and for what, or dream even a little bit smaller. You can decide, oh, let's shoot for a bigger goal and see what happens. Or you can think to yourselves, hey, let's be realistic. There's no way we're going to hit that goal right now. Let's hit for this goal instead. But if you're a company like, if you're one of our giant competitors, like if you're like Starbucks, if you're a crazy corporate like All Stars that are just going to do good pretty much no matter what, I think then it becomes really important to have goals, because it probably becomes very easy to kind of get lazy and assume, oh, we're fine, we're Starbucks. But they have to keep pushing themselves, because
I think they did that already when Howard was gone. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, Cold Brew just came out. Imagine how pissed off we were. I mean, they were super late to the game, but they just came out with Cold Brew, and everyone's talking about it. I'm like, we've had Cold Brew for like 5 years.
No, that's good for you. That's good for you, because now you don't have to educate people. They know what it is.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to jump over to Samantha. Has a lot to say, so go.
Okay, so I'm just I'm starting a new thing in August, and I literally have the ability to negotiate my goals for my incentives. So next week I actually meet with the CEO of the company, which is so awesome. And I'm literally like, this is everything I want to do in 12 months. He told me how much would fit within the incentive program and said, you figure out when you think you've reached those incentives based on what you want to do, and go through it point by point. And literally I get to prove what I think my goals are for my gig. And I don't think this would have happened if we hadn't had such a really awesome interview. Like, I think we just had a really solid, like, I walked out of that building calling my partner being like, there's no way I didn't get this job. There's no way. There's 1,000% I got this job. And so I would, even in the interview,
think that's going to happen to you often in your career.
I don't know. I hope so. But I literally, in the interview, because usually you don't do this, I was giving them ideas. I literally was like, even if you don't hire me, this is what you should do in this area. This is what you should do. These are things that are really good for this position. And because of that, I think it set me up so that when I was allowed to just go for it, they said, okay, you do free range. We'll meet this date. You have everything that you want to show us, and then we'll see how that goes. Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, 8-year-olds running around the house. Okay, so TJ wants to talk about, so did you negotiate your goals? And really what the point is how much does this matter to how involved you feel and how loyal you feel to the company?
Okay. Then I get it's probably not even relevant to that aspect then. I mean, I'm still very loyal to the organization that I work for. I was initially thinking, no, I have no impact on my, goals number-wise. But
there are other goals, right? There are a lot of other goals.
There
Employee retention is one. Like, if I'm your boss, I want you to retain your employees because of how much it costs me when you lose them, right?
Yeah, so you've got that aspect of course, you want to be a good manager, so you're getting good people and that type of stuff, which creates more loyalty. But then I came back and I thought, oh wow, my boss does come to us and sends us out what we think our goals should be and goes from there. So there is natural negotiation. I didn't see it as that, because I didn't see it as me getting a number and writing back another number across the counter. It's just more natural.
Yeah, like the old days. Yeah. Okay. All right, so we only have 12 minutes left. I knew this would be a good one. So I'm going to ask a question, and you guys jump in and tell me who wants to answer it most or most passionately. Is what kills loyalty? Like, I guess the question is twofold. What absolutely is a no way, I can't do it, killer of loyalty? And then what is the one thing you need to be loyal? Joe, you're smiling, so go.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to say what I was going to say. But
you are going to say what you were going to say. What was it?
Micro fucking management. I don't, I think that's absolutely the number one thing. Like, I'm out. I'm out emotionally. I'm out in terms of metrics. When somebody wants to tell me how to do my job, because I see that essentially as like the worst sort of part of any company. Because and to be very clear, like, because I think some people, not in this group, but some people will come back and say like, yeah, but not every job is subject to negotiation and loyalty and all that. You know what? One of the first jobs I worked in account setup, and we had a data entry team in Mexico, and I just got a message from this gal like yesterday, literally after 5 or 8 years or whatever, and I remembered her. I was like, man, she was really good at her job, because she would figure out all these things about Oracle that were really screwed up, and you had all these sets of like regulations or whatever. So I think there's almost always creativity involved in doing the job well when you're micromanaged. That loyalty to me is just, it's a shot. It's done.
Amen. And I think the quote of the night, Samantha, is going to be micro-fucking management. We're allowed to curse on here. Okay, who wants to jump in with that? What's the killer for you? Daniel, what would kill your loyalty? What would be the one thing where you're like, that's it? I think
in the past, what for me it's lack of direction. Not only lack of direction of your own career, but lack of direction within the leaders and company. When I, used to do internships, I used to look up, okay, how do the leaders work? What is their work ethic? Do they believe in the company? Is this, do they have a vision? What's their brand? And if I didn't really believe in them, then I didn't really believe in the company. Therefore, I didn't want to be there because I looked at it as a waste of time. So I think for me, for me to really be loyal, I have to be fully committed and fully bought in.
Yeah, and you said to me once. You said to me once when we were talking about sales that you have to absolutely believe in the product to sell it,
right.
And I think that's what great salespeople do, and that's partly is believing in the company too.
Right.
Okay. All right. TJ, you optimist. What absolutely would kill your loyalty?
I can say this because I've left different departments or areas because of management right then and there. So I think I answer both your questions with the word manager, like kind of what he said. So it's about the environment. I think there's something out there. People don't leave their job and their career; they leave their manager.
And you know what? That was the one quote I forgot that Samantha had said last night because she moderates the Boomer think tank, and that is true, right? Your manager can kill your careers, and they can also. I worked for a manager once who was so outstanding that despite all the other BS going on around, I wasn't leaving because he protected us as much as he could from the BS and made our job still, worth doing. So yeah, I get that. Dominic, what would kill your loyalty?
Okay. Well, for me, I think definitely having management is a great is kind of a great middle of the web, so to speak. That would branch off into various things. I think for me, having a manager who is willing to, how do I say this? Being able to have a manager who understands where we are in our relationship, I think is really big for me. Because I've had managers where it's like, depending on how they act from the very beginning, it might start a great relationship, and other times it may not be great at all. And I realized quickly that, okay, this is going to be walking on eggshells for the whole job. We'll see how long I can even keep it. And I think a lot of the time, there's also, I've seen from managers, multiple managers that I've had, that they have a lack of understanding of, if I act this way and I give them a preconceived notion of how things are, that I can act this way now, and they won't realize how I'm actually feeling, and in my perspective, it's like, whoa, like that is so, like we're not there, like relationship-wise, like you haven't connected with me on that level at all. I think it kind of goes back to what I think it was what Samantha was saying about flip-flopping. It's just like this kind of worry that if depending on what I do or what I say, the boss might say one thing one time and then something completely different the next time, just because of the inflection I used, the words I chose, how I handled it, and it's like there has to be an open-ended trust and open-ended communication, from the very beginning that starts small and builds up, and it can't jump around,
Yeah. So you do not want to work for someone who's bipolar, which I've been able to do twice in my career, and I totally get that. Yeah. So walking on eggshells, that's a book, by the way, about relationships, and I get it. I had a job once, and the man was definitely bipolar. The first one I worked for actually told me and explained to me what that disease was, and it made it so much easier for me to manage it. It was incredible because he was really honest. And then I went to another workplace, and you would walk into that office, and the entire day would be dictated by him and his mood. Yes, I only stayed there for a year. So I get that. Maybe that's an extreme case. I think sometimes that flip-flopping comes from a lack of vision and a lack of confidence, right? Samantha's saying yes. All right, we have 6 minutes left, and we've touched on my daughter wishes we were finished. We've touched on a lot of different things. Is there anything that somebody wants to say about loyalty, death of loyalty, or anything like that we missed, or touch on something that someone else brought up? Okay, Samantha?
I think there has to be a big switch within the way that we have managers, at least for an incoming generation, to switch that mindset that we're not going to be here 25 years. Because the expectation that, we're going to have this growth and then, do things and then progress to this sort of like, oh, and now you have all this inherent loyalty to a company. It's got to be straight up like, this is what I'm giving you. I'm being honest. I'm being transparent. This is how much my contract is, so I'm giving you my honest ability of how much.
Wait, are you sorry to interrupt? Are you saying there is often an expectation and a pretending that you're going to be there for
yes
forever? Okay.
Yeah, I've had that where I'm like, sorry, I'm in a mat leave contract. I really think I'm not going to be here after this person comes back. Like, that's kind of what's stated.
What do you call that contract?
Maternity leave.
Oh, what'd you call it though?
Mat leave or pat leave or whatever.
Okay. All right. Yes. All right. So maybe some managers have not caught up with what's actually going on in the workforce. Yeah. That's interesting. Okay. Anything else anybody needs to or wants to put in before we close out? Okay. All right. Well, that was great, you guys. It's a good hangout when I'm writing down lots of notes, even though it's being recorded, because I can't go back. the most precious things I write down. But anyway, thanks a lot. We are coming back next month, and we are talking about mentoring again, TJ. Mentoring and what that means in today's workforce, especially not only from the mentees' needs, but also from what companies can do, since there is such a high turnover or a less of an expectation that you'll be there forever. How does a company plan for a future and develop leaders who may not be with them when they're fully grown into a leader? So anyway, thanks everyone. You guys can hang on. I'm going to shut down the live broadcast, and we'll see you next month.